What happens when a powerful man's arrogance meets a young woman's hidden brilliance, and one moment of crisis reveals who truly belongs in the corporate world? This is an absolutely incredible story that will make you question everything you think you know about intelligence, potential, and the extraordinary people who work right under our noses every single day. You're about to witness how one receptionist's unexpected expertise completely transformed a billion-dollar company and silenced an entire floor of executives who thought they knew everything about talent and capability. If you want to see this mind-blowing moment unfold and discover how respect can be earned in the most shocking ways, make sure to smash that like button right now, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss these powerful stories that remind us never to underestimate anyone based on their job title. I'm also incredibly curious to know where you're watching this life-changing story from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. Trust me, by the end of this story, you'll never look at the people around you the same way again. The morning sun cast long shadows across the polished marble floors of the 62nd floor of One World Trade Center, where the executive offices of Meridian Financial Holdings commanded breathtaking views of New York Harbor, the Statue of Liberty, and the sprawling metropolis that never slept. The floor itself was a monument to wealth and power, featuring floor-to-ceiling windows, custom Italian marble, hand-carved oak paneling, and art collections that included original works by Picasso, Van Gogh, and Rothko, worth tens of millions of dollars. Meridian Financial Holdings was one of Wall Street's most prestigious and successful investment banks, managing over $300 billion in assets for governments, corporations, and ultra-wealthy individuals around the world. Founded 35 years earlier by visionary financier William Blackstone, the firm had built an unparalleled reputation for identifying lucrative investment opportunities, structuring complex international deals, and generating extraordinary returns for their clients across multiple economic cycles and market conditions. The company's success was legendary throughout the financial world. They had orchestrated some of the largest mergers and acquisitions in corporate history, had guided dozens of companies through initial public offerings that created billions in market value, and had consistently outperformed their competitors through sophisticated analysis, strategic insight, and an almost supernatural ability to predict market movements before they occurred. But at the heart of Meridian's success was its founder and CEO, William Blackstone III, a man whose name commanded respect and fear in equal measure throughout the corridors of global finance. At 68 years old, William was worth an estimated $4.2 billion, making him one of the wealthiest individuals in the financial services industry. His personal investment portfolio included stakes in Fortune 500 companies, luxury real estate properties on 5 continents, a collection of vintage automobiles worth over $50 million, and artwork that rivaled the holdings of major museums. William had been born into privilege as the heir to a banking dynasty that stretched back 4 generations. His great-grandfather had founded the original Blackstone Bank in 1887. His grandfather had expanded the business into investment services during the economic boom of the 1920s, and his father had transformed the company into a global financial powerhouse during the post-World War II expansion. William had inherited not just substantial wealth, but also the business acumen, political connections, and social standing that had allowed him to build upon his family's legacy and create an even more powerful and influential financial empire. Over the course of his 45-year career, William had developed a reputation for brilliance, ruthlessness, and an almost obsessive attention to detail that allowed him to spot opportunities and risks that others missed. He was known for his ability to analyze complex financial data with lightning speed, his talent for negotiating deals that seemed impossible to structure, and his uncanny instinct for market timing that had made his clients extraordinarily wealthy while building his own fortune to astronomical levels. But William Blackstone was also known throughout the financial industry for his demanding perfectionism, his intolerance for incompetence, and his belief that success in finance required not just intelligence and training, but also a particular type of breeding, education, and social background that could not be taught or acquired. He hired exclusively from Ivy League universities, preferred candidates from established wealthy families, and maintained that the complex world of high-stakes finance was simply beyond the comprehension of people who lacked the proper educational pedigree and cultural sophistication. This particular Tuesday morning in late March found William preparing for what could be the most important presentation of his career. Meridian Financial Holdings was competing for the opportunity to manage a sovereign wealth fund worth $200 billion for the Kingdom of Al-Rashid, a wealthy Middle Eastern nation that was looking to diversify its oil revenues through sophisticated international investments. The competition included every major investment bank in the world: Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, and a dozen other firms that commanded hundreds of billions in assets and employed some of the most brilliant financial minds on the planet. But the Al-Rashid contract would be the largest single client mandate in the history of investment banking, and securing it would cement Meridian's position as the premier financial services firm in the world. The presentation was scheduled for 2:00 p.m. that afternoon, when Crown Prince Abdullah al-Rashid would arrive with a delegation of ministers, advisors, and technical experts to evaluate Meridian's capabilities and determine whether they possessed the expertise, resources, and cultural sensitivity to manage such an enormous and complex portfolio. William had spent 3 months preparing for this presentation, working with teams of analysts, economists, and regional specialists to develop investment strategies that would appeal to the Al-Rashid delegation while demonstrating Meridian's superior capabilities. The presentation materials included detailed economic analyses, sophisticated financial models, risk assessment frameworks, and strategic recommendations that represented thousands of hours of work by some of the most talented financial professionals in the industry. But William's preparation went beyond just financial analysis. He had studied Middle Eastern culture extensively, had consulted with cultural advisors and diplomatic experts, and had even arranged for the executive conference room to be decorated with traditional Islamic art and architectural elements that would make the Al-Rashid delegation feel welcomed and respected. Every detail had been carefully planned to demonstrate Meridian's commitment to understanding and serving their potential clients' cultural values and religious principles. The executive team that would participate in the presentation represented the absolute elite of the financial services industry. Margaret Chen, the chief investment officer, held advanced degrees from Harvard and Wharton and had previously managed portfolios worth over $50 billion. David Rodriguez, the head of international markets, was a former ambassador who spoke 6 languages fluently and had negotiated trade agreements with over 30 countries. Sarah Williams, the director of alternative investments, was recognized as one of the world's leading experts in sovereign wealth fund management and had advised governments on 3 continents. Also participating would be Robert Taylor, the chief risk officer who had developed revolutionary risk management systems that were now used throughout the industry. Jennifer Martinez, the head of quantitative analysis, who had created mathematical models that could predict market movements with unprecedented accuracy. And Thomas Anderson, the director of client relations, who had built personal relationships with some of the wealthiest and most influential people in the world. As William reviewed the presentation materials one final time, he felt confident that Meridian possessed every advantage necessary to win the Al-Rashid contract. Their track record was unmatched, their expertise was unparalleled, and their resources were virtually unlimited. But he also understood that the competition would be fierce, and that even the smallest mistake or oversight could cost them the opportunity of a lifetime. At the reception desk on the 62nd floor, 24-year-old Isabella Rodriguez was beginning her morning routine of answering phones, greeting visitors, and managing the complex logistics of an executive floor that hosted some of the most important business meetings in the global financial industry. To most of the people who worked at Meridian, Isabella was simply part of the office infrastructure, a pleasant, efficient young woman who ensured that phones were answered promptly, appointments were scheduled correctly, and visitors were properly directed to their destinations. Isabella had been working as a receptionist at Meridian for 18 months, having been hired directly out of college to fill what was considered an entry-level administrative position that required little more than a friendly demeanor, basic organizational skills, and the ability to follow simple instructions. Her salary was modest, her responsibilities were limited, and her opportunities for advancement within the firm were virtually non-existent, given Meridian's preference for hiring senior professionals from prestigious universities and established financial institutions. But Isabella's background was far more impressive and complex than anyone at Meridian realized or had bothered to investigate. She had graduated summa cum laude from Columbia University with a double major in international economics and Middle Eastern studies, with a particular focus on Islamic finance and the economic development of oil-producing nations. Her academic performance had been exceptional, earning her membership in Phi Beta Kappa, multiple academic awards, and recognition as one of the most outstanding students in her graduating class. During her undergraduate years, Isabella had spent 2 summers interning at the World Bank in Washington, D.C., where she had worked on economic development projects in the Middle East and North Africa. She had also completed a semester abroad at the American University of Beirut, where she had studied Arabic language and culture while conducting research on sovereign wealth fund management strategies in the Gulf states. Isabella's senior thesis at Columbia had been a comprehensive analysis of Islamic banking principles and their application to modern international finance, a work that had been praised by her professors as graduate-level research that demonstrated exceptional insight into both financial theory and cultural considerations. Her faculty advisor had encouraged her to pursue a PhD in international economics, and she had been accepted to graduate programs at Harvard, MIT, and the London School of Economics. However, Isabella's academic achievements and career plans had been derailed by a family crisis that had forced her to postpone her graduate studies and seek immediate employment. Her mother, Maria Rodriguez, had been diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer just weeks before Isabella's graduation, beginning a medical journey that would require extensive treatment, multiple surgeries, and ongoing care that placed enormous financial and emotional burdens on the family. Isabella's father, Carlos Rodriguez, worked as a maintenance supervisor at a public school district in Queens, earning a modest salary that provided basic financial security, but was insufficient to cover the catastrophic medical expenses associated with cancer treatment. Even with health insurance, the family faced co-pays, deductibles, and out-of-network costs that quickly accumulated into tens of thousands of dollars in debt. As the eldest of 3 children, Isabella had made the difficult decision to defer her graduate school acceptance and seek employment that would allow her to contribute to her family's medical expenses while helping to care for her younger siblings, Miguel and Sofia, who were both still in high school and needed support and stability during their mother's illness. The receptionist position at Meridian Financial Holdings had been one of the few jobs available that offered health insurance, a regular salary, and the kind of schedule flexibility that would allow Isabella to accompany her mother to medical appointments and treatments. While the work was far below her educational qualifications and career aspirations, it provided the financial stability her family desperately needed during an incredibly difficult period. For 18 months, Isabella had performed her receptionist duties with exceptional competence and professionalism, but she had never revealed her educational background or expertise to her colleagues. She understood that the financial services industry was notoriously hierarchical, and that admitting her qualifications might make her seem overqualified for her current position, while simultaneously highlighting her lack of relevant work experience in finance. Moreover, Isabella had observed the culture at Meridian closely enough to understand that the firm's leadership valued pedigree and connections as much as competence, and that her background as the daughter of working-class immigrants from Ecuador would likely be seen as a disadvantage rather than evidence of her determination and achievement. During her time at Meridian, Isabella had been exposed to countless high-level business conversations, confidential documents, and strategic discussions that had given her insights into the firm's operations and client relationships. Her desk was positioned outside the main conference room, where the most important meetings took place, and her responsibilities included preparing materials for presentations, coordinating with international clients, and managing communications between the executive team and external parties. Through this exposure, Isabella had developed a comprehensive understanding of Meridian's business model, investment strategies, and client relationships. She had also used her access to the firm's research databases and financial resources to continue her own education in international finance, spending her lunch breaks and free time studying market reports, economic analyses, and industry publications that kept her current with developments in global finance. Isabella's particular expertise in Middle Eastern economics and Islamic finance had been enhanced by her continued study of the region's financial markets, political developments, and cultural trends. She subscribed to Arabic-language financial publications, followed Middle Eastern economists and policymakers on social media, and maintained correspondence with former professors and classmates who worked in the region. But none of this extensive knowledge and expertise was visible to the executives at Meridian, who saw Isabella simply as a receptionist whose primary qualifications were a pleasant phone manner and the ability to organize appointment schedules. To them, she was part of the office furniture, useful, reliable, but ultimately irrelevant to the serious business of managing billions of dollars in investments. On this particular Tuesday morning, as Isabella arrived at her desk and began her daily routine of checking messages and preparing for the day's appointments, she was unaware that her extensive but hidden expertise was about to become crucial to the most important business presentation in Meridian's history. At 11:30 a.m., William Blackstone emerged from his corner office with an expression of barely controlled panic that was completely out of character for a man who had navigated countless financial crises with legendary calm and composure. In his hand, he held a smartphone displaying an urgent message that had just arrived from the Al Rashid delegation's advance team. "Margaret," William called out to his chief investment officer, his voice carrying an edge of desperation that immediately caught the attention of everyone within hearing distance. "We have a major problem with this afternoon's presentation." Margaret Chen looked up from the financial models she had been reviewing, her expression shifting from concentration to concern as she registered the unusual strain in William's voice. "What's happened?" "The Al Rashid delegation has just informed us that Crown Prince Abdullah will be conducting the entire meeting in Arabic," William said, his face pale as he contemplated the implications of this unexpected development. "They want to test our commitment to understanding their culture and our ability to communicate effectively in their language." The implications of this news hit the executive team like a thunderbolt. Despite months of cultural preparation and consulting with regional experts, none of Meridian's senior executives spoke Arabic fluently enough to conduct a complex financial presentation in the language. Their cultural preparation had focused on understanding Islamic business practices and showing respect for Middle Eastern traditions, but they had assumed that the formal presentation would be conducted in English, which was the standard language for international business. "Can we request that the meeting be conducted in English?" Margaret asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer would be problematic. "Absolutely not," William replied grimly. "This is clearly a test of our commitment and cultural sensitivity. If we can't accommodate this request, it will demonstrate that we don't truly understand their market or their values. Every other firm competing for this contract will find a way to conduct their presentation in Arabic." David Rodriguez, the head of international markets, stepped forward with a possible solution. "I can speak basic Arabic, enough for social conversations and simple business discussions, but conducting a technical presentation about complex financial instruments and investment strategies is far beyond my capabilities." "What about hiring professional interpreters?" suggested Sarah Williams. "We could bring in simultaneous translation services to ensure accuracy." William shook his head decisively. "That would look unprofessional and would suggest that we don't have the internal capabilities to serve Arabic-speaking clients effectively. We need someone on our team who can conduct this presentation fluently and confidently in Arabic." The executive team stood in stunned silence as they contemplated the magnitude of the problem. The Al-Rashid presentation represented the culmination of months of work and the potential for the largest client contract in the firm's history. Losing the opportunity because of a language barrier would be a devastating blow to Meridian's reputation and competitive position. "Do we know anyone in the industry who could help us on short notice?" asked Jennifer Martinez. "Someone who could join our team for this presentation and conduct it in Arabic." "Everyone with that level of expertise is already committed to other firms," William replied. "And even if we could find someone available, bringing in an outsider at the last minute would raise questions about our internal capabilities." As the executives continued to discuss possible solutions, their conversation was being overheard by Isabella Rodriguez, who was sitting at her reception desk less than 20 feet away from where they were standing. Isabella's knowledge of Arabic was far more extensive than basic conversational ability. She was functionally fluent in both spoken and written Arabic, with particular expertise in the financial and business terminology that would be essential for the Al-Rashid presentation. During her semester at the American University of Beirut, Isabella had taken intensive Arabic language courses and had conducted her research entirely in Arabic, interviewing government officials, bank executives, and economic policymakers throughout the region. Her senior thesis had included extensive analysis of Arabic language financial documents and economic reports that required sophisticated understanding of technical terminology. More importantly, Isabella's expertise in Islamic finance and Middle Eastern economics meant that she understood not just the language, but also the cultural context, religious principles, and business practices that would be crucial for effectively communicating with the Al-Rashid delegation. She was familiar with the specific investment preferences of Gulf state sovereign wealth funds, understood the religious restrictions that governed Islamic finance, and knew the cultural protocols that would be expected during high-level business meetings. As Isabella listened to the executives' increasingly desperate discussion, she found herself facing a decision that could transform her career and her life. She could remain silent and allow Meridian to lose the most important client opportunity in their history, or she could speak up and reveal capabilities that none of her colleagues knew she possessed. The risk of speaking up was substantial. If her offer to help was rejected, or if she somehow failed to meet expectations, it could damage her standing at the firm and potentially cost her the job that her family desperately needed. Moreover, revealing her qualifications might lead to awkward questions about why she was working as a receptionist instead of pursuing a career in finance. But Isabella also understood that this might be her only opportunity to demonstrate her true capabilities and potentially transition from an administrative role to meaningful work in international finance. The knowledge and expertise she had acquired through years of study and research could finally be put to use in a way that would benefit both Meridian and her own career aspirations. After several minutes of internal debate, Isabella made a decision that would change everything. She stood up from her desk, walked quietly over to where the executives were still discussing their language crisis, and cleared her throat gently to get their attention. "Excuse me, Mr. Blackstone," Isabella said politely, her voice calm despite the racing of her heart. "I couldn't help overhearing your discussion about the Arabic language requirements for this afternoon's presentation. I might be able to help with that." William turned to look at Isabella with an expression of barely concealed irritation. He was dealing with a crisis that could cost his firm hundreds of millions in revenue, and the last thing he needed was to be interrupted by the receptionist with some irrelevant suggestion or misguided offer of assistance. "Isabella, this is not really an appropriate time," William said dismissively. "We're dealing with a very complex business situation that requires specialized expertise." But Isabella had come too far to be dismissed without at least explaining what she could offer. "Mr. Blackstone, I speak fluent Arabic and have extensive background in Middle Eastern economics and Islamic finance. I believe I could conduct the presentation for you this afternoon." The statement hung in the air like an impossible proposition. The idea that the receptionist could possess the language skills and expertise necessary to conduct a presentation to one of the world's wealthiest sovereign wealth funds was so far outside the realm of possibility that the executives initially assumed they had misheard or misunderstood what Isabella was suggesting. William stared at Isabella for a long moment, his expression shifting from irritation to confusion to something approaching disbelief. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" "I said that I speak fluent Arabic and have extensive background in Middle Eastern economics and Islamic finance," Isabella repeated, her voice gaining confidence as she committed to revealing her qualifications. "I could conduct the Al-Rashid presentation in Arabic, if that would be helpful." Margaret Chen stepped forward, her expression skeptical but curious. "Isabella, are you saying that you speak Arabic well enough to conduct a complex financial presentation?" "Yes, ma'am. I'm fluent in both spoken and written Arabic, with particular expertise in financial and business terminology. I also have extensive knowledge of Islamic banking principles and sovereign wealth fund management strategies specific to Gulf state investors." The executives exchanged glances that mixed surprise with doubt. The possibility that their receptionist possessed advanced expertise in exactly the area they needed seemed too convenient to be credible. David Rodriguez, drawing on his diplomatic experience, decided to test Isabella's claims. He addressed her in Arabic, asking about her background and experience with Middle Eastern finance. Isabella responded fluently and confidently, not only answering his questions, but demonstrating a level of linguistic sophistication and technical knowledge that far exceeded basic conversational ability. The brief exchange in Arabic left David visibly impressed, but also confused about how their receptionist had acquired such advanced language skills and specialized knowledge. "Isabella, where did you learn to speak Arabic at this level?" "I majored in Middle Eastern studies at Columbia University and spent a semester studying at the American University of Beirut," Isabella explained. "I also completed internships at the World Bank working on economic development projects in the MENA region." William's expression had shifted from skepticism to shock as he processed this information. "You studied Middle Eastern economics at Columbia University? Why didn't we know this when we hired you?" "It wasn't relevant to the receptionist position," Isabella replied diplomatically. "And I needed a job with health insurance immediately after graduation due to family circumstances." Sarah Williams, who had been listening to the conversation with growing amazement, stepped forward with a more detailed question. Isabella, do you understand the specific investment preferences and restrictions that govern Islamic finance? Because that's going to be crucial for this presentation. Isabella's response demonstrated the depth of her expertise in ways that left the entire executive team speechless. Yes, ma'am. Islamic finance operates under Sharia law principles that prohibit interest-based transactions, excessive uncertainty, and investments in businesses involved with alcohol, gambling, pork products, or other haram activities. Sovereign wealth funds from Islamic countries typically prefer sukuk bonds, murabaha financing structures, and equity investments that comply with Islamic ethical guidelines. She continued, the Al-Rashid Fund specifically has shown preference for infrastructure investments, technology companies that align with their Vision 2030 diversification strategy, and alternative energy projects that support their long-term economic planning. They also typically require Islamic finance certification for all investment vehicles and expect detailed documentation of Sharia compliance for every transaction. And the level of specific technical knowledge that Isabella was demonstrating was exactly what would be needed to conduct a successful presentation to the Al-Rashid delegation. But it was also knowledge that none of the senior executives at Meridian possessed to this degree of detail, despite their months of preparation and consultation with regional experts. Margaret Chen looked at William with an expression that mixed amazement with pragmatic recognition of their situation. William, if Isabella really has this level of expertise, she might be our best option for conducting the presentation. But William was struggling with the idea of having a receptionist represent Meridian in the most important client meeting in the firm's history. The optics seemed impossible. How could they explain to a delegation of ministers and financial experts that their presentation was being conducted by someone whose official title was receptionist? Isabella, I appreciate your offer to help, William said carefully, but I'm not sure this would be appropriate. The Al-Rashid delegation is expecting to meet with senior executives and experienced investment professionals. Having a receptionist conduct the presentation could send the wrong message about how seriously we're taking this opportunity. Isabella felt the familiar sting of being judged by her job title, rather than her capabilities, but she had anticipated this objection and was prepared to address it directly. Mr. Blackstone, with respect, the Al-Rashid delegation is expecting to meet with people who understand their culture, speak their language, and can demonstrate genuine expertise in Islamic finance and Middle Eastern markets. My job title is less important than my ability to communicate effectively with them and represent Meridian's capabilities accurately. Robert Taylor, who had been quietly observing the exchange, raised another practical concern. Isabella, even if you have the language skills and cultural knowledge, do you understand Meridian's investment strategies and portfolio management approaches well enough to present them accurately? Isabella's answer revealed just how much she had learned during her 18 months at the firm. Mr. Taylor, I've been preparing materials for executive presentations for over a year. I'm familiar with Meridian's quantitative analysis methods, risk management frameworks, and historical performance data. I've read every client report and market analysis that's crossed my desk, and I understand the firm's competitive advantages and strategic positioning. She paused before continuing. More importantly, I understand how to translate those capabilities into terms that will resonate with Middle Eastern investors. I know which aspects of Meridian's approach will appeal to the Al-Rashid Fund and how to present our strategies in ways that demonstrate cultural sensitivity and understanding of their investment objectives. Thomas Anderson, the Director of Client Relations, asked the question that everyone was thinking. Isabella, this is a $200 billion client opportunity. Are you confident that you could represent Meridian effectively in such a high-stakes presentation? Isabella took a deep breath before answering, understanding that this moment would determine whether she would be given the opportunity to prove herself or would remain invisible in her current role. Mr. Anderson, I've spent 4 years studying exactly the type of economic and financial issues that will be discussed in this presentation. I've spent 18 months learning about Meridian's capabilities and client relationships, and I've spent my entire academic and professional life preparing for exactly this type of opportunity to apply my knowledge and skills to real-world challenges. She looked around at the assembled executives before continuing. I can't guarantee that we'll win the Al Rashid contract, because that depends on many factors beyond language and cultural understanding. But I can guarantee that I'll represent Meridian's capabilities accurately and professionally, and that the Al Rashid delegation will understand exactly what we're offering and why we're the best choice to manage their investments. The executives stood in stunned silence as they processed the implications of what they had just learned. Their receptionist was apparently more qualified to conduct the most important presentation in the firm's history than any of the senior executives who had been preparing for months to impress the Al Rashid delegation. William found himself facing a decision that challenged everything he believed about credentials, experience, and professional hierarchy. Accept help from a receptionist and risk the appearance of desperation, or proceed with their original plan and almost certainly lose the contract due to language barriers. After a long moment of consideration, William made the decision that would transform both Isabella's career and Meridian's relationship with Middle Eastern markets. Isabella, he said quietly, if you're willing to do this, we'll give you the opportunity. But I need you to understand that this is the most important client presentation in Meridian's history. The stakes couldn't be higher, and failure could have serious consequences for everyone involved. I understand the stakes, Mr. Blackstone, and I'm ready. The next 3 hours were a whirlwind of preparation as Isabella worked with the executive team to adapt the presentation materials for delivery in Arabic, while ensuring that all the technical content and strategic recommendations were accurately conveyed. She had to familiarize herself with specific financial projections, market analyses, and investment recommendations that had taken the team months to develop. But Isabella's background proved invaluable in ways that went beyond just language translation. Her expertise in Islamic finance allowed her to identify aspects of Meridian's standard investment approach that might be problematic for a Sharia-compliant fund, and she was able to suggest modifications that would make their proposals more appealing to Middle Eastern investors. She also provided insights into cultural protocols and communication styles that would be expected during the meeting, helping the executive team understand how to structure the presentation to align with Middle Eastern business practices and demonstrate appropriate respect for the delegation's status and cultural values. At 1:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the scheduled arrival of the Al Rashid delegation, Isabella stood in the executive conference room, wearing a conservative business suit that she had purchased during her lunch break, reviewing her notes one final time. The transformation from receptionist to financial presenter was remarkable, but what was even more striking was the confidence and competence with which she had assumed her new role. When Crown Prince Abdullah Al Rashid arrived with his delegation of ministers and financial advisors, Isabella greeted them in fluent Arabic with the appropriate cultural protocols and expressions of respect. The delegation's reaction to being welcomed in their native language by someone who clearly understood their cultural traditions was immediately positive, setting a tone of mutual respect and understanding that would characterize the entire presentation. Over the next 2 hours, Isabella conducted what many observers later described as the most impressive financial presentation they had ever witnessed. She explained Meridian's investment strategies in Arabic while seamlessly incorporating Islamic finance principles, demonstrated deep understanding of Middle Eastern economic conditions and political considerations, and answered complex questions about risk management and portfolio optimization with expertise that amazed both the Al Rashid delegation and the Meridian executives. But perhaps most importantly, Isabella's presentation demonstrated genuine cultural sensitivity and respect that went far beyond simple language translation. She understood the values, priorities, and concerns that motivated Middle Eastern investors, and she was able to present Meridian's capabilities in ways that addressed those specific considerations. The Al Rashid delegation was visibly impressed not just by Isabella's linguistic abilities, but by her sophisticated understanding of their investment objectives and cultural requirements. Crown Prince Abdullah commented that he had rarely encountered Western financial professionals who demonstrated such deep appreciation for Islamic finance principles and Middle Eastern business practices. When the presentation concluded, the delegation requested a private consultation with Isabella to discuss specific aspects of Islamic finance implementation and Sharia compliance monitoring. For 45 minutes, she answered detailed technical questions about religious investment restrictions, cultural considerations in portfolio management, and strategies for balancing financial returns with Islamic ethical principles. As the Al Rashid delegation prepared to leave, Crown Prince Abdullah addressed William Blackstone directly. "Mr. Blackstone, we are very impressed with Meridian's capabilities, and particularly with Ms. Rodriguez's expertise in Islamic finance and Middle Eastern markets. We will be making our final decision within the next week, but I can tell you that today's presentation has positioned your firm very favorably in our evaluation process." After the delegation had departed, William and his executive team gathered in the conference room to debrief about the presentation and its implications. The room was silent for several minutes as everyone processed what they had just witnessed. Margaret Chen was the first to speak. "Isabella, that was absolutely extraordinary. I've never seen a financial presentation conducted with that level of cultural sensitivity and technical expertise." David Rodriguez nodded in agreement. "Your understanding of Middle Eastern politics and economics was remarkable. Some of your insights about regional market conditions were more sophisticated than analyses I've seen from our senior regional specialists." But it was William's response that would determine Isabella's future at Meridian and signal a fundamental shift in how the firm recognized and valued talent. "Isabella," William said, his voice carrying a mixture of amazement and respect that had been completely absent from his earlier interactions with her. "I owe you an enormous apology. For 18 months, we've had one of the most qualified Middle Eastern finance specialists in the industry working as our receptionist, and we were too blind to recognize your capabilities." He paused, clearly struggling with the implications of how completely he had misjudged Isabella's potential and value to the firm. "I've spent my entire career believing that success in finance required specific credentials and backgrounds, but you've just demonstrated that expertise and competence can come from unexpected sources. You've also shown me that our hiring practices and assumptions about talent have caused us to overlook extraordinary capabilities that were right under our noses." William looked around the room at his senior executives before continuing. "Isabella, I want to offer you a position as Director of Middle Eastern Markets, reporting directly to our International Markets Division. The role would include responsibility for all of our Islamic finance initiatives, client relationships throughout the MENA region, and strategic planning for our expansion into Middle Eastern markets." The offer was beyond anything Isabella had dared to hope for when she had made the decision to reveal her qualifications earlier that day. The position would utilize all of her education and expertise while providing the kind of career opportunity and financial security that she had been working toward since graduating from Columbia. The salary would be $400,000 annually, plus performance bonuses tied to our Middle Eastern market revenues, William continued. We'll also provide full health insurance coverage for your entire family and educational assistance for any additional certifications or advanced degrees you want to pursue. Isabella felt tears forming in her eyes as she realized that her decision to speak up had not only helped Meridian secure a crucial client opportunity, but had also transformed her own career prospects in ways she had never imagined possible. Mr. Blackstone, I accept your offer gratefully, but I want you to know that my goal isn't just personal advancement, it's to help Meridian build genuine expertise in Middle Eastern markets and establish relationships based on mutual respect and cultural understanding. 1 week later, Meridian Financial Holdings received confirmation that they had been selected to manage the Al Rashid Sovereign Wealth Fund, securing the largest client contract in the firm's history. The Al Rashid delegation specifically cited Isabella's expertise and cultural sensitivity as decisive factors in their selection process. But the impact of Isabella's emergence as a financial expert went far beyond just securing one client, no matter how large and important. Her success forced William and the entire Meridian leadership team to re-examine their assumptions about talent, credentials, and the sources of expertise within their organization. William commissioned a comprehensive review of all Meridian employees to identify hidden qualifications and overlooked capabilities throughout the firm. The review revealed that the company employed a security guard with an advanced degree in computer science, a custodial worker who was a certified public accountant, an administrative assistant with extensive experience in international trade, and dozens of other employees whose talents were being underutilized due to assumptions about their roles and capabilities. Meridian established new policies for internal promotion and career development, creating pathways for employees to transition into roles that better utilize their qualifications and interests. They also implemented mentorship programs, tuition assistance initiatives, and professional development opportunities that encouraged all employees to pursue advanced training and education. Isabella's success story became a catalyst for cultural change throughout the financial services industry. Other firms began re-examining their own hiring practices and employee development programs, recognizing that talent and expertise could be found in unexpected places if organizations were willing to look beyond traditional credentials and job titles. 6 months after the Al Rashid presentation, Isabella had established Meridian as one of the leading Western financial firms in Islamic finance and Middle Eastern markets. She had helped secure contracts with 3 additional sovereign wealth funds, had developed innovative Sharia-compliant investment products, and had built relationships with government officials and business leaders throughout the region. Her success had also enabled her to address her family's medical expenses and financial challenges. Her mother's cancer treatment was progressing well. Her siblings were able to focus on their education without financial stress, and Isabella was finally able to pursue the graduate education that she had been forced to defer years earlier. Isabella enrolled in a part-time MBA program at Columbia Business School, with Meridian providing full tuition support and flexible scheduling that allowed her to continue her professional responsibilities while advancing her formal business education. Her long-term goal was to establish her own investment firm specializing in cross-cultural financial services and Islamic finance. 2 years later, at Meridian's annual client conference, William Blackstone stood before an audience of hundreds of investors, government officials, and business leaders to reflect on the transformation that had begun with Isabella's unexpected expertise. 2 years ago, Meridian faced a crisis that could have cost us the most important client opportunity in our history, William said. We were rescued not by our senior executives or our prestigious credentials, but by a receptionist who possessed exactly the expertise we needed, but had been too blind to recognize. He gestured toward Isabella, who was seated at the head table as Director of Middle Eastern Markets and one of Meridian's most valuable senior executives. Isabella Rodriguez taught us that talent and expertise can be found anywhere, and that our assumptions about credentials and backgrounds can blind us to extraordinary capabilities that are right under our noses. She also demonstrated that success in global finance requires not just analytical skills and market knowledge, but also cultural sensitivity, linguistic abilities, and genuine respect for diverse perspectives and values. William paused, looking out at the audience of financial industry leaders and government officials. The lesson we learned is that diversity isn't just about fairness or social responsibility. It's about competitive advantage. Isabella's success has made Meridian a more capable, more innovative, and more successful firm. She's helped us build relationships and develop expertise that would have been impossible without her cultural knowledge and linguistic skills. Isabella had also become a role model and mentor for other employees who possessed hidden talents and overlooked capabilities. She established an internal scholarship program that provided educational assistance to employees seeking to develop new skills or transition into different roles within the firm. Her story inspired countless individuals throughout the financial services industry who had been working in positions that didn't fully utilize their qualifications or potential. Isabella frequently spoke at industry conferences and university career events, encouraging people to pursue opportunities that aligned with their capabilities and interests rather than accepting limitations based on others' assumptions or expectations. The Al Rashid contract had grown to over $300 billion under Isabella's management, making it not only the largest, but also one of the most successful client relationships in Meridian's history. The fund's returns had consistently exceeded benchmarks, and the cultural sensitivity that Isabella brought to the relationship had resulted in additional referrals and contracts throughout the Middle East. Crown Prince Abdullah Al Rashid had become not just a client, but a personal friend and professional collaborator, frequently consulting with Isabella on regional economic policies and investment strategies. He often commented that Isabella's emergence at Meridian had restored his faith in Western financial institutions' ability to understand and respect Middle Eastern values and priorities. The ripple effects of Isabella's success extended far beyond Meridian and the financial services industry. Her story became a case study in business schools around the world, used to teach lessons about recognizing talent, challenging assumptions, and building inclusive organizations that could identify and develop capabilities regardless of their initial form or context. Isabella's transformation from receptionist to senior executive had also changed her family's circumstances completely. Her mother had successfully completed cancer treatment and was in remission. Her brother Miguel had received a full scholarship to study engineering at MIT, and her sister Sophia was preparing to attend medical school with financial support from Isabella's scholarship program. But perhaps most importantly, Isabella's success had demonstrated that intelligence, expertise, and leadership capability could emerge from any background and could be found in any role if organizations were willing to look beyond surface appearances and traditional credentials. As Isabella reflected on her journey from reception desk to executive suite, she often thought about the moment when she had made the decision to speak up during the language crisis that had threatened the Al Rashid presentation. That single moment of courage had transformed not just her own life, but had also changed how an entire organization thought about talent, potential and the sources of competitive advantage in a global economy. Her story served as a reminder that extraordinary people could be found in ordinary circumstances, and that the most important qualifications for success were often character traits like curiosity, determination, and the courage to seize opportunities when they presented themselves. If this incredible story of hidden talent recognized, assumptions challenged, and lives transformed through one moment of courage moved you and made you think differently about the people around you, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel for more powerful stories that celebrate human potential and the importance of looking beyond surface appearances. Share in the comments below about a time when you discovered hidden talents in yourself or others, or when someone surprised you with capabilities you never knew they possessed. Let's honor the Isabella Rodriguezes of the world, who remind us that intelligence, expertise, and leadership can be found anywhere if we have the wisdom to recognize them and the courage to give them opportunities to shine. Sometimes the most qualified person for the job is the one nobody expects, and the greatest competitive advantages come from recognizing and developing the talents that others overlook or underestimate.